Thank you. About 15 years ago, 15 years ago, on Halloween night, I dug up a graveyard. And this is a true story. I've only dug up a graveyard once, and it just so happened it was on Halloween night. I was working for a company that did environmental work. We had historians and we had environmental planners, and I'm an environmental guy. And there was a graveyard underneath the street in front of Old City Hall in New York. It's called the African Burial Ground. They used to bury, it was like a pauper's field from the 1600s to the 1700s. And slaves got buried there. Hessian soldiers during the Revolutionary War got buried there. People got buried there, were not treated with much respect. They didn't put up headstones, and then they built a street over it. And then there was a sewer main break. So in this modern street, there's a sewer main break on Halloween night. That's the same night they have the Halloween parade in New York, just about a block away. So they called up our company, and they said there was one guy there who was certified to do this very sensitive archaeological work, where you would sometimes find what I will call remains, which is, it's just little teeth and stuff like that. It's usually nothing big. So that's the nice, proper word for it. And as it happened when I was in school, I did some anthropological work years before with the skull collection, which is a very long story. So they just needed a guy because it was such a big project. So they sent me up with this guy, Tom, at a PhD, and I was his assistant. So I go up there at 10 o'clock at night, and I work until 3 o'clock in the morning in a graveyard on Halloween while the parade is going on. So I'm at this one end of this trench, and I got these Italian ditch diggers. These are guys, most of them couldn't speak English. They came over here, and they're really good at aiming dirt. They're deep there, and because you couldn't use a front end loader because this was like a sensitive site. You couldn't just put a bulldozer in there. And these guys get paid to work quickly. So they're very quickly shoveling dirt into this very neat pile, and I'm supposed to go and find things in this very neat pile. It was not working out. They didn't speak English. They're like these big macho, Italian macho guys. And the parade's going on at the same time. So as I'm like sort of looking for skeletons, there are people in actual skeleton costume who are walking by on the street at midnight, and also a lot of men in big feather boas and fishnet stockings with long blonde hair. And that was a very interesting cultural mix between the big burly Italian ditch diggers and guys in fishnet stockings. I won't tell you the comments that they made. So I'm sitting there trying to get these guys, who don't speak English, to dig slowly on Halloween night. And just then, this guy comes up, and I knew he was somebody official. And he had a long gray beard and a yarmulke on. And I knew that the head of archaeology for all New York was this guy, and his name was something like Abraham Moses, or like Isaiah Jacob, or this like Old Testament biblical, prophetic name. So he comes up to me and he goes, "You one of the consultants?" And I say, "Yes." And he goes, "So are you segregating the remains?" I had no idea what that meant. I'm like, I'm trying to find stuff while these Italian guys are, and it was chaos. I'm at this end, a New York City block away is Tom, the guy who knows what's going on. So Mr. Abraham, whatever, comes up and he's, "Are you segregating the remains?" And I say, "Yes." And then he says, "Good," and walks away. So at this point, I try to get the guys to stop digging for a second, And I run down, and this is like 2 o'clock in the morning. I run down the street to the other end of the trench where Tom, the guy who actually knows what's going on, is there doing stuff. And I say, Tom, I just saw Abraham Moses, and he just asked me, are you segregating the remains? And I said, yes. Are we segregating the remains? And this is, this is a graveyard. We have to treat people with respect here. And he looks at me and he goes, yeah, of course we're segregating the remains. That's what we're doing. That's the technical term for going through a big pile of dirt that a bunch of Italian guys are throwing very quickly and trying to find stuff and putting it in a little plastic bag and then running over to Tom and saying, is this a pig or is this a pork chop or is this a person? That's what is called segregating the remains. So the good news was, we were segregating the remains. I was doing my job properly. I met with whatever his name was, a real nice guy, really interesting stories, learned all about the history of New York and the sewer system, and they ended up plugging the pipe, and we ended up getting home at 4 o'clock in the morning, but having to basically sleep in the Grand Central Station, which fills with a lot of mice at night. I learned that as well. Don't sleep if you were tempted to sleep on the floor in Grand Central Station for cleanliness reasons, but there's a lot of mice there. We went back. I never dug up another graveyard again in my life, certainly not on Halloween. I think the Halloween goers in their skull costumes and their feather boas had a good time. So everything worked out. I think the moral of this story seems to be is that when you are faced with chaos, just lie. But that's not much of a moral. So I think I have to end this story by just saying, Happy Halloween. Thank you.
Good job, Pete.